Hey friends, yesterday we covered the topic of how to install Visual Studio Code and ServiceNow extension for Visual Studio Code. So let's continue on the next steps for the same. So the next steps are, let's look at this one. So the next steps are, as you can see, we completed install Visual Studio Code, install ServiceNow extension for Visual Studio Code. After you do that, just make sure that you restart the Visual Studio Code. Yeah, that's what is documented, right? So ServiceNow says you need to restart Visual Studio Code, probably to recache stuff that was installed as part of extension. And then after you do that, you need to type in the command developer reload window. After you do this command, you can start issuing now commands. The commands are added by ServiceNow extension Visual Studio extension in Visual Studio Code. So you can start issuing now commands after that. So as you can see, the step number 5 is to install Node.js. This is required because the Visual Studio Code uses npm to sync the application files. Basically, the sync works through npm, so that's needed. So you need to install Node.js, and installing Node.js is pretty straightforward. You just need to go to nodejs.org. So let's go there, nodejs.org, and go to download link and click on the installer that's relevant for you, and then just go ahead and install it. The installation is pretty straightforward, and I just need to click on next thing, and it'll take care of it. So we installed the Node.js. I installed the Node.js, and that's true, and it went through pretty straightforward. And then after you do that, what you need to do is you need to activate the now extension. So the way you activate now extension is you need to go to the Visual Studio. In the Visual Studio, you need to open the command palette. The way you open the command palette is by clicking Ctrl+Shift+P. That's one way of doing it, and another way of doing it is view command palette, right? Ctrl+Shift+P. So you need to activate the extension. So you need to click on this. So this will activate the ServiceNow extension for Visual Studio Code. I have already done that, so I'm not going to repeat that command. So yeah, so after that, you need to create a workspace. So for creating a workspace, there is a separate command called create now workspace or something. Create workspace. If you're in doubt, just type now, and it will list all the relevant commands installed by ServiceNow extension. So this one looks like is this one, right? So setup now workspace. So just go ahead and create a new folder for storing your project. That's going to be your workspace. So I'm going to call it as to do create now project. So issue that command. So as soon as you do that, it will ask you for the instance URL. Go ahead and give your instance URL there. My instance URL is this, and let's go back to Visual Studio, enter the instance URL. So it's asking, how do you want to authenticate? Do you want to use basic authentication method or OAuth? In my case, it's going to be basic, so I'll select basic. So it's asking for username. I'll use admin account, and I'll enter the password. So there you go. Success, you are authenticated. So what happened just now is that Visual Studio Code connected to ServiceNow instance successfully, and after doing that, it's giving me two options. Those two options are custom applications and store applications. In my case, I'm going to import a custom application that I've already created for this demonstration, and that custom application can be seen through ServiceNow Studio as well. So in the studio, this is my to-do app that I'm going to import in Visual Studio Code today. So it's a very straightforward application. It just has a task table where your to-do tasks are stored. It has no client scripts, no UI policies, no business rules, nothing. Just a plain simple table where you can store and the to-do tasks. Is that it's just for the demonstration purpose, so I didn't complicate it much, right? So this is what is going to get imported in Visual Studio Code. So just click on custom applications, import existing. See, as you can see, there are two applications, custom applications, that are listed here. And if you go to Studio and open the Studio again, you'll see those two applications listed here as well, which is My To Do and Address Book. So let's go to Visual Studio again. I'll select My To Do. What you're seeing right now is the list of all the application file types, right? If you do not want the application files, irrelevant application files, to be imported, just uncheck those. And the safe bet is to select everything, because when you're dealing with a big application, probably you'll have a lot of different application file types. So it's better to select. I would just go ahead and keep everything as is, for at least just for the demonstration purpose. So I'm going to keep everything as is, but if you want to do a selective import, you can uncheck this one. Using this checkbox, you can uncheck and then select individual application files. For example, role, client scripts, UI policies. So you can selectively choose which application file type you want to import in Visual Studio Code, right? So like I said, I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to click OK. So it's now importing the project from ServiceNow in Visual Studio Code, and the application that it is importing right now is My To Do. There you go. It successfully imported the application, My To Do application, and as you can see, the source, on the source you see all these different application file types, right? Access control, data model. Let's look at each of those and see what it has. So it has a role, right? And if you have observed here, there's .now extension added. When you click on the .now extension files, right, it basically wants to take you to the instance. So it's asking you as to whether you want to go to the instance to see this one, and that happens for .now extension files. So for now, I'm going to cancel that, or maybe you could just take a look at as to what happens when you do that, right? It's going to open. I think the session was timed out, so yeah, it just opened the role. That's what happens with the .now extension files. The data model, under the data model, we just have one table, which is task. Again, you'll see .now extension here. If I click on that file, And basically it's asking me again whether you want to go to the instance to look at this application file. So I would just say no for now. Let's look at miscellaneous section. Under miscellaneous section you have dictionary entries, and these dictionary entries are nothing but the scripts under calculated value in the dictionary entry of each field. So on the task table I have 4 fields: due date, reminder, state, task description, and what we are seeing right now is the script for calculated value, right? So let's go to Studio and see what I'm saying. Task table has 4 fields: due date, reminder, state, and task description. So if I open due date and look at the calculated value here, the calculated value, right? This is the code that we are seeing here in the Visual Studio, right? So to demonstrate, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some code here. So the code would be setting the due date to +5 days as a default value. It's going to calculate that now. So to do that, we'll use glide GDT, glide date time, new. You see that IntelliSense? I like IntelliSense. That's really, you know, useful for the developers. Glide date time GDT dot add days UTC. I'm just gonna add 5 days, and I'm just gonna get GDT dot get date. I get the date, and basically we're going to return this new date now, which is +5 days. Save this code using Control S, and after you do that, you just sync the current file by issuing a command. Basically you'll have to open the command palette again by clicking on Control Shift P and then type in the command sync current file. So what it's doing right now, it's basically synchronizing the due date dictionary entry. So let's go to the studio and look at, hey, there you go, see, it got updated. It got updated with our code that we added in Visual Studio. Isn't that great? Come on. So yeah, the code got updated, and if you want to change something from ServiceNow, save it here, right, and go back to Visual Studio and do the same command, which is Control Shift P, sync current file, which is the first one here, sync current file. So it's basically syncing now. Did you see? The number of days got updated from 5 to 3. Isn't that cool? I think it's cool. So yeah, I think we can stop here for today. You know, we saw a lot. I think it's a lot of information for you to you know, grasp, and basically you have to do a lot of steps also as a follow-up steps right after this video. So those steps 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and yeah, feel free to go ahead and play with the Visual Studio code on your own and, you know, just explore it. I'll come back tomorrow with something new tomorrow, which is going to be related to Now Experience UI. I think the name is just messed up. It should be something else. Go away now. Good night. I'll talk to you tomorrow.